stations and other means of transportation, or it's about reviving the old town. Because, today we need to preserve our heritage, but we also need to strengthen it, because you don't want buildings which start falling apart. So just
and
like
you also don't want glass-fronted buildings in Ayodhya.
No, certainly not.
Right.
Certainly not.
So I hope that's not happening.
That's not happening for sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Dikshu, for that. Let me bring in Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, Sabarmati was a dead river, and you revived it. It used to stink, and as you were explaining to me that the back of the houses were facing the river. You turned it around. 13,000 families were relocated in the process, and all of that happened what seems like very seamlessly, without controversy, without environmental groups coming forward and protesting. How did you manage it?
देखिए, मैं पहले तो आपको बता दूं, मैं म्यूनिसिपल कमिश्नर था जिस ज़माने में। माफ़ कीजिएगा, थोड़ा मन चाह रहा है, मैं लखनऊ से हूं, तो मैंने कहा थोड़ा डिफरेंट तरीके से बात करूं, नहीं तो मैंने परमिशन ली है, थोड़ी बात उर्दू में भी कर सकता हूं। तो पहले तो मैं म्यूनिसिपल कमिश्नर था। आई हैड लेफ्ट फॉर द वर्ल्ड बैंक after creating the company, the Sabarmati River Front. And then our Honorable Prime Minister picked it up in 2004, and by 2012, they had converted it. Now the issue is कि Sabarmati जो है, it is not a perennial river, it's a monsoon-fed river. तो वो रुकती है और वो एक तरीक़े का तालाब बन जाती है। तो उसको साफ रखना is a big challenge, And when I had taken over as chairman in, I think, 2018, so it had 0% of oxygen and COD, BODs बहुत आई था. I can say, अभी ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई जाके उसमें swim कर ले, but definitely now we have about 8% oxygen.
जी.
We have a much better quality of water, and you'll be surprised to see कि about 120 species of birds have come back.
Wow.
To the Sabarmati this thing. देखिए, हमें और कोई सर्टिफिकेट दे या ना दे, मैं खुद कंजर्वेशन में हूँ, तो मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगता है कि एकदम से कमरे से बाहर देख रहे हैं, and a whole fleet of cormorants are kind of skipping the water and they are going across. So बना है, it's absolutely in a way a miracle of political tenacity and vision. और किस तरीके से 13,000 लोगों को, मैं आज पूछ रहा था लोगों से कि कैसे किया, 13,000 families को rehabilitate करना
जी,
in a very in a manner in which everyone felt that it brought value to them and reduced their vulnerability.
Right. So I want to bring both of you in here. Why is it that India has not been able to develop its riverfronts? Delhi में यमुना है, अहमदाबाद में साबरमती है, असम में ब्रह्मपुत्र है, but हमारा failure रहा है कि हम लोग develop नहीं कर पाए. And these are big commercial business district areas, prime real estate. What has been the challenge? Is it lack of political will? Is it lack of urban planners? Dikshu.
So we have to remember, rivers are actually, they don't look at political boundaries. Some of the rivers you are mentioning actually go through different countries. And of course, a lot of the rivers that we have here go through different states. So we have to understand that river is a continuous feature. Unlike a lake or any other water body of that nature, here it needs an integrated approach. Because if one part of the river is being looked after, but in another segment, you start discharging waste into it, you cannot have a clean river. So I know now policies are coming into place where not only about riverfront development, but you're looking at it as a mode of transport with inland waterways, etc.
Right.
But definitely I feel that river is one feature in a city which can actually become the spine of the city rather than a backyard.
Right.
So for that, you need an integrated riverfront development, but you also need an integrated water management policy towards that river.
Right. Keshwji, yes, please do comment on this.
देखिए, हिंदुस्तान में अच्छे प्लानर्स की कमी नहीं है, बैठे हमारे बगल में. लेकिन दिक्कत है कि the kind of political will which you require in a consistent long-term manner to do a project, because this project takes about 10 to 12 years to do. तो होता क्या है, एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन आया, उसने शुरू किया, दूसरे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे उसने फ़ौरन उसके ऊपर इंक्वायरी शुरू कर दी, all that kind of stuff. So let me not get into it. I'm actually heading a committee on, high-level committee on urban planning for the government. And one of the recommendation is to create 25, take up 25 cities which are on the riverfront and actually develop them. If you look at all across the world, the highest amount of return on investment is on the riverfronts. All your CBDs, central business districts, are on the riverfront.
Right.
So we haven't really thought about how to do this, but...
But you were mentioning, Mr. Verma, about the work that you're doing in Srinagar. So you spoke about political will. So are we seeing certain state leaders play a more proactive role in developing riverfronts and making the cities more pedestrian friendly?
You heard the governor, His Excellency. I work in Srinagar also. You know, of course, सब लोग ये फिरदौस है और ये सब चीज़. But you know, it is what is happening in the cars are carving out the planning of the cities. What we are trying to do in Srinagar, we are doing 80 kilometers of footpath where people can walk. There has to be pedestrian security and safety. एक तो हम ये कर रहे हैं. झेलम रिवरफ्रंट बना रहे हैं, आपको बड़ी खुशी होगी वहाँ पर जिस तरीके का बन रहा है. आइएगा आप लोग देखने 3 महीने के बाद. You love it because I think Srinagar city may become the model for city renewal for the country, because we are not only doing Jhelum riverfront, but we are also restoring the built heritage on the riverfront. And
amazing. That's the testimony of the transformation of Srinagar, because just a few years ago, I think people would think twice before visiting Srinagar. Ji.
देखिए, भगवान कुछ ऐसा उल्टा ना करे, but this is the first time we have shown the political will and the professional integrity to plan and renew Lal Chowk in Srinagar. आप जानते हैं ना लाल चौक के बारे में? इस कदर कंट्रोवर्शियल चीज़ है कि हाथ नहीं लगा सकते हैं, और लोग इतने खुश हैं, और खुश इसलिए हैं कि ये जो डिक्टेटरशिप और लैक ऑफ एक्विटी है ना कार ओनर्स की, हमारे जैसे लोगों की, इसको कम कर रहे हैं. वॉक करके जाएंगे सब जगह. एंड उससे यू नो माफ़ कीजिएगा इफ़ यू डोंट माइंड, आई वाज सिटिंग विद अ पॉलिटिशियन रिसेंटली इन श्रीनगर, और वो आए, उन्होंने पहले ही आप लोग यू आर नैरोइंग डाउन द रोड्स. अरे भाई चलिए, तो आप डू यू वांट अ हाईवे थ्रू योर सिटी? शहर जैसा, श्रीनगर जैसे शहर में आप तो आराम से वॉक करिए. यू शुड स्ट्रोल थ्रू द सिटी, feeling the beauty and nature around you, instead of zipping through. And would you believe it, Srinagar is now having traffic jams. तो हमको तो बड़ा different तरीके से सोचना पड़ेगा कैसे शहरों को डेवलप करना है.
Dikshu, I want to bring you in here. That's probably the approach, not probably, that is the approach you'll have to take while you are working on Ayodhya's master plan as well, because it's a place of great historical, religious significance. It's very emotive. So when you're working on a project like Ayodhya, are you taking inspiration from other such cities across the world? What is it that you're putting into that city while you're planning it?
So I would say it's not just about Ayodhya, because there are so many cities in our country which have, in varying degrees, historical significance or cultural significance or natural significance. So I think the important thing we all must realize when we are talking about urban renewal is that so far in the last 4-5 decades, the idea or the inspiration has always been the West. We look at what Western cities have done, whether it is the fascination with the car, and therefore we keep creating, like Mr. Verma has just talked about, highways running through the city, or lots of roads. We talk about how many kilometers of roads we are building every day in the country. But what we are forgetting is that that's a very Western phenomena, and it's a 20th century notion. Today, what we should be learning are the better ideas that the West has succeeded at and failed at. For example, why don't we start looking at, instead of highways, we can have highways, but we should look at new technology like Hyperloop. and connect that between cities. So there are a lot of 21st century innovations which need to come into our cities.
You've still not told us about Ayodhya.
So about Ayodhya, I would say that, of course, it's the planning there has ensured that while we insert elements of infrastructure which a modern city requires, let's say, for example, a railway station or an airport. This is a necessity today. But you can do two ways about it. You can either create, like you said, the glass and steel building and put it in the middle of Ayodhya and say this is a modern intervention, or you create a modern state-of-the-art building, but give it the ethos of the historical architecture.
Sure.
And that's exactly what we are trying to do.
Okay, all right. I think we are out of time. The producer is telling me to wrap up, so I'm sorry, but we'll have to end it here. Having said that, please do take up Mr. Verma's invitation and plan your trip to Srinagar. 3 months, sir. So summer in Kashmir, Indian
श्रीनगर में
summer.
आइए, सुनिए, इस कदर टूरिस्ट आ रहे हैं कि पहले से रिजर्व करा के आइएगा.
And
Because
Dikshu
दो
is...
साल के लिए पूरा booked है, hotels, you know. It's an amazing transformation, and all of us should feel very proud because what is becoming, this is what I call transformational urbanism, which is also going to act as a healing process for the people out there. So there's a lot to be talked around, but
And we already have the minister's invitation for Ayodhya
Shweta,
next year.
I'm certainly visiting Sabarmati waterfront and Ayodhya and Kashmir very soon, so I have a long bucket list.
Yes.
How many of you are going to visit Sabarmati waterfront very soon?
Great.
More hands? Great. Thank you so much, Shweta.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shweta, I'm also going to request you to felicitate our speakers with
have been stories that have clearly wowed me, and I can't wait for you to share that with our audiences as well. Nachiket, I'm going to begin with you. So Nachiket, to give a background to people, comes from my hometown, Kanpur. That's no bias in selecting this panel at all. But what Nachiket does is truly interesting. He went out to the ghats of Ganga and other places in Ayodhya and other places like that in UP and across the country, and figured out there is a lot of flower waste. But what he did with that flower waste is a story I'm going to let him finish. Tell us about that.
Okay, so we all go to temples in a huge quantity. Not just temples, all places of worships. And basically to offer our prayers, we offer flowers to our gods. And no one actually was worried about the aftermath. Everyone thinks like, okay, I'm just offering, bunch of flowers to the gods. But as the number of people, the overall quantity of flowers eventually becomes so huge. So across India, a rough statistics says that annually 8 million tons of flowers are offered. And as a tradition, to maintain the sanctity of these flowers, we used to throw them in water bodies. But how correct is that? So what happens is these flowers are often pesticide-laden. So the toxic chemicals, the traces of these toxic chemicals, they eventually end up in the water bodies. And at the same time, okay, flowers are natural things, but if they naturally and convert into manure, but when they end up in water, they actually rot. And that rotting creates some hazardous contaminations which are not good for the water ecosystem. So that's why it was necessary to do something about these waste flowers that are getting generated from the temples.
So Nachiket then, with his 3 other friends at IIT Kanpur, decided that we must do something about this, right? So he then collected all these flowers first from the ghats in Kanpur.
Yes, we started with Kanpur.
Now you are where all?
We started with Kanpur. Now we have presence in Varanasi, Ayodhya, Bodh Gaya, and now hopefully Badrinath is also coming up. So we started by making simple products like incense sticks, cones, and all natural holy gulals by utilizing the flowers. Creating the powder out of these flowers and eventually converting it to these products.
I love the beauty of this innovation. You took what people offer as Shraddha to the gods and you converted them into something like incense sticks, something like dhoop-battis, colors, flowers that we can all really enjoy.
Yeah,
so that's an ingenious idea.
In the products like, agarbatti and dhoop, so we have this concept in our tradition, like we call Tera Tujhko Arpan. So whatever was, offered to the gods, the flowers, we are converting something that you can again give back to the god. So that is one thing. And we are not just stopping there. We are trying to come up with products which eventually can give you solutions to other things that are non-sustainable. For example, here I have Flora foam, as we call it. It is an alternative to styrofoam, also known as thermocol. So this can be utilized as a biodegradable and sustainable alternative to any sort of packaging. And here...
So just to put this in perspective, so thermocol is not biodegradable.
Thermocol is not at all biodegradable.
It will end up in landfills.
Yeah, landfills, ocean debris, and it is actually one of the 5th biggest pollutant on Earth. It is it comes under the category of non-recyclable plastic. And either you burn it and it turns into, the black smoke and vanishes into thin air, adding up to the air pollution in a huge amount.
And all of us on our Amazon, Flipkarts, ordering stuff all the time, it comes with tons of plastic, tons of thermocol as well, which of course companies are also trying to do their best to avoid. But what you've given them is an alternative made out of waste flowers.
Yeah, so if you just break it, this can be made in any shape. This is like a corner. You can place all 4 corners and you can place any product into it. If you just break it, you will find a bunch of flower petals as well as some little amount of agri-waste like straw and all inside it. So this is bound together with a simple biological process by allowing some microbes to grow on the waste.
And this is completely biodegradable. This can just go
This
back.
is completely biodegradable. If you
Yeah.
put it in soil, it will vanish off into the soil in merely 90 days.
I know, Nachiket, you have tons more to speak because you guys are not just stopping at products and not just stopping at Flora Foam. There is a feather also that I know, but I'll come to that in a bit. Let me bring in the other panelists as well. Let me go to Kaushik. Now, Kaushik is the co-founder and CEO of Kheti. And Kaushik, when I met him, gave me this iconic line which hasn't left my mind. He believes his idea in life is that every farmer should be a Lakhpati farmer, right? And this idea really blew my mind. I was like, okay, how are you going to ensure this? So of course, Kaushik, your story, I want you to tell in your way. You had one meeting with a very small farmer, and that changed your life. Tell us how.
Thank you so much. First of all, I feel a little bit out of place. Two people from Kanpur, one from Lucknow. I'm the only one representing South India here, at least from Telangana. But yeah, so I grew up in Hyderabad in Telangana, and I was a city kid. I didn't know anything about farming. I did all the things that you were supposed to do. I studied math, then I went to IIT, then I got a job in consulting and investment banking. But then I had sort of a quarter-life crisis, which brought me to this world of agriculture and rural India. So before I started Kheti, I probably spent 5 years, I would say, call it apprenticing with the problem, which is really understanding agriculture and rural India in an earlier company, where I got to travel about 14 states of India, and I probably visited thousands of villages, traveled about 200 days a year. And that was really my education. It was not IIT, it was not college, it was not maths. During that time, in 2015, I met a farmer called Reshma. So Reshma is a small farmer in a village called Depalli in Telangana. It's about 2 hours